Hey, what up, guys? Welcome back to the Golf Parfection podcast. In this one, we're going to talk my winners and losers for the third TGL match, which was between the Atlanta Drive and New York Golf Club TGL teams. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the match outcome. Once again, in the end of the day, it was a little bit lopsided. Not as bad as the first two matches, but, still a lopsided affair. But let's just jump into the winners and losers. So my first winner here is actually Billy Horschel. I think Billy actually felt right at home when he was playing, and he was actually a little bit better than I thought he was going to be in terms of his presence. In terms of the golfers coming in, yes, it was a little bit cringy, but he did the dirty bird. At least he did a little research and a little effort in his walk up. Arthur Blank is the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, and he also is a part owner of Atlanta Drive. So I thought it was a cool touch. Another winner here was JT. His putter was on fire. So from both a gameplay perspective and just like a personality entertainer perspective, he was really good. He just did as well as I thought he was going to do. Mic'd up and being what I thought was going to be like the biggest personality during this particular match. But I think Billy Horschel equaled him in that effort. Another winner here is Golf Fans on a Tuesday. They did pick a very good time and day of the week to have TGL because there wasn't much else on. I mean, admittedly, I probably would have just enjoyed my evening just as much watching like my shows on my iPad. Golf Fans on a Tuesday, we do have something to watch. And like I said in my first video about TGL, you don't have to watch, right? I mean, it's just something extra. This is bonus golf. Unfortunately for Tomorrow Sports, they want this to be just more than something in the background, something that you may or may not tune into or have in the background. They want this to be a full-blown thing where everyone is, on the edge of their seat. Definitely not that so far, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Obviously, the last winner here will be the Atlanta Drive team. I thought there was going to be a little bit of struggle with Atlanta Drive getting settled in and getting used to the gameplay, and New York Golf Club would have the upper edge, but that was not the case. Like now that I'm looking at the roster, that team on paper in terms of just overall, I guess, capability is probably not as strong as some of the other rosters. And they didn't have Xander Schauffele tonight, which, like I said, this one's going to be quick, but unfortunately the list of losers is a lot longer than the list of winners. The first losers are the Matts. So first is Matt Berry. Yeah, he's been doing a good job, filling the void on the broadcast. This is kind of a tangent here, but they need to show more stats of the golfers, and we need someone who can interpret those stats and make them make sense what we see on the screen. I think that would be more beneficial if we get like a swing nerd or someone who really knows golf swings and dive into that and that be part of the conversation on the broadcast. Matt Berry, like I said, great presenter, maybe not the best golf presenter. And it's starting to show through if you're watching week over week on the broadcast. I mean, you let me know. What do you think about ESPN's strategy of having Scott Van Pelt as the overhead, but then the in-person commentator as Matt Berry? Do you think he's doing a good job? Let me know in the comments. All right, next loser here is again Matt Fitzpatrick. The first match he was saying he was having trouble reading the greens, so he employed a new, I guess, Camila Villegas get low to the ground type of strategy to read the greens. But yeah, when he was hitting his shots into the big screen, you could see immediately on his face that he knew something was off and that the result wasn't going to be good. And so it would pan to his face, he'd kind of grimace or say something, and then before the ball even landed, you kind of already had an idea that it wasn't going to be in a good spot. I know golfers make mistakes, but the simulator is doing no favors for Matt Fitzpatrick, so he ends up being another loser in all this. Another loser in this match was the in-person crowd. I'm saying it over and over again. I think if you watch it in person, just go into it knowing that you're not going to be able to hear what they're saying on ESPN, and you're not going to be able to hear the dialogue between the players. Only if you're up close and personal, you're going to be able to hear the conversations that are going on with the players on the field. After a few holes, the crowd didn't seem that they were into it. Everyone was just sitting there quietly watching. Like I said in my previous videos, the crowd at TGL, they need to be taught how to interact or what to do in person to make the environment in which TGL wants to create. For me, it's seeming more and more that the in-person experience is not super worth it unless you want to see the athletes in a different environment and up close. For the actual like fun and excitedness of the format, it's not there to see in person. I think it's still better to watch on television. Yeah, the in-person crowd, they're just like me. I mean, hey, I was one of those people. It's just not the greatest spectator sport environment, in my opinion. All right, next loser is the TGL format. As it stands, we have 3 matches now under our belts. All of them are all pretty lopsided. This was the least lopsided. And for this format, to succeed, it needs to be closer in terms of the competition. Today was the first day where the single matches actually mattered. But after a few single matches, it was already decided and it was dormy. with a couple holes to go, and then boom, I lost interest. I think the most exciting matches that you'll get are ones that come down to the wire, that go to overtime with the closest to the pin match, but I don't even think that that is going to happen. I'm willing to hold off on that opinion until we get like an actual close game that comes down to the wire. I think we're gonna have to wait a couple weeks to see if this is the correct format for all of this. Next week between Rory and Tiger, Tiger's team is just really undergunned. Tom Kim will probably replace Kisner versus who knows from the Boston Common. I'm predicting another blowout, but we'll see. Next week, the personalities will be on full display, but competition, if it's not good, we're going to tune out pretty quickly. And the only reason why last week's match got talked about so much is because Kisner almost killed someone by blading a stand shot into the flag and it almost going into the stands. So yeah, like I said, the TGL format is a loser here. This was the first time where singles matches actually mattered. So we'll see how this goes. I guess segueing from TGL format, and a part of that format is the hammer. My next loser is the hammer itself. So guess what? The hammer was thrown 0 times. Yeah, strategically, someone posted a really long thread on Reddit, and the TLDR on that was like, basically the hammer in the end game is worth 1 point. The team that receives the hammer last essentially has an extra point. Therefore, you should never throw the hammer unless you are losing the end of the game. Now, I don't know if Justin Thomas or anyone from Atlanta Drive read that thread, but that was on full display. Once they went up and they had control of the flag, they never threw the flag to let the other team in. And essentially, yeah, the hammer was just a game mechanic that was never used. On the first match, the hammer wasn't used all that much. The second match, the hammer was used, but it was used incorrectly too many times, and then Tiger Woods' team went down too quickly. And then third time, this time, the hammer wasn't used at all. An actual good use of the hammer was the good match, which I feel like was just as entertaining, if not more entertaining, than the actual TGL matches themselves. I think the good viewing was really fun. Obviously, they have the editing and there's no commercials. They're really good entertainers as YouTubers, but I feel like that was more fun than actually watching any of the TGL matches so far. And it actually went down to the wire in overtime, closest to the pin. So hopefully future matches get to that level. If not, if they're these lopsided affairs, man, it's not going to last very long. So it's getting to the point where it's almost too late to change some of the rules, because it would be unfair to the teams that have already played. But I feel like if it gets too dire, they're gonna have to change the hammer or the format in some way to make these matches closer, because you can't have all this lopsidedness and expect people to stay engaged and excited over what is being viewed on screen if it's not even close. All right, coming to my last loser, unfortunately, is the New York Golf Club. And even though the worst loss has been suffered by Jupiter Golf Links in terms of point differential, the New York Golf Club was the first team to get shut out in TGL history. And yeah, it's just not looking good for them. I feel like they were going to be stronger than what they are. I think they've had some unlucky breaks. I think Matt Fitzpatrick put it, they haven't made a single putt. And I think, every opportunity they had to win a hole, they didn't convert. And yeah, it's just not been good for them. So, that's golf. You can have a string of bad luck. Golf does not care. It will be relentless to you. But yeah, 0 points is just plain bad. I guess another loser is myself, because I'm the one who's making these videos. And, and right now it's not looking good for DGL. I think the numbers are going to come out tomorrow. It's going to be very poor. We're going to obviously see a spike next week when it's Tiger and Rory, but after that, there's not going to be a matchup quite like that. Hopefully they have the scheduling and the personalities, planned out to where it can sustain itself and have good numbers. But until we get to the playoffs, I feel like all the interim matches, unless these other teams that we haven't seen before, start to shine through, it's going to be pretty rough for TGL. And that's all I have to say today in this video. Maybe I'll bring a guest on to talk about TGL in itself, or talk about other topics. I've been meaning to get other guests on the podcast to discuss whatever. So if you stick around, stay subscribed. We're almost to 5,000 subscribers. We'll be doing like a cool giveaway for that for sure. So stick around and subscribe. But hope you guys enjoy that one. Keep chasing. We'll see you in the next one.